a bit of a presentation for you here today, but before I do that, I just thought it would be interesting for you to hear what sort of goes on in the background of a pandemic, because none of us have been through it before. And as an employee of an insurance company, it was quite interesting to watch what happened. And what happened at Blue Cross is no different than what happened at Canada Life or Great West Life or any other insurance company, Manulife. Not exactly the same, but it was a very similar process. So it came upon us quite quickly. I remember, I think the last advisor I met was on March 16th, and then on March 17th, they shut the province down. And how we operate is, we can sell some products directly to the public, but the vast majority of products we sell through an insurance advisor. So we work with a network of insurance advisors who sell our product. Normally it's done face-to-face. There's non-face-to-face has been going on for quite a long time, but the general accepted practice is an advisor will go meet the client and talk to the client, get the signatures and the applications signed there on the dining room table. Over the recent years, it's moved a lot to electronic applications, but not fast enough to help us when we ended up running face-on with COVID-19. So basically what happened is, once everybody sort of was over the initial shock of what was going on, insurance companies had to say, okay, what are we going to do and how are we going to operate in this time? Blue Cross made the decision, and we actually did it very quickly, more quickly than I would have imagined. But in Toronto, we have somewhere around 200 employees. In Montreal, we have about 450 employees. Within 10 days, they were all working from their homes. They had acquired laptops, sent everybody home. Nobody was allowed to come into the office. So they had to, because we're still very much a paper-based company, we had to come up with ways of dealing with the flow of paper and the mail. So it was a whole interesting transaction of people moving into their homes and everybody getting familiar with it. So when you hear about today, and I'm sure you went through it with your own business, you hear about, at the end of when this pandemic is over, things aren't going to quite go back the way they were before. I thoroughly agree that, because I see the investment that we made in sending our employees to work from home and looking now after 3 months going, geez, this is working not too bad. Maybe we can make our businesses smaller and pay for less real estate and have more people work from home. So you're probably seeing that, we're seeing that. So that was the first step that what happened. Everybody went home. Second step was, we had to look as a company and go, okay, now, how do we help new customers? And what can we do to help existing customers? And so what happened is, we came up with almost like a COVID-19 team. This team met every single morning. I would get updates and meet with them maybe twice a week. But every time they met, they come back and I say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to add this electronic signature and that electronic signature to our list of things that we will accept. And as mentioned earlier, insurance companies have come a long way in electronic applications. We don't really have electronic applications per se, but we will accept scanned applications. But the whole situation immediately forced every insurance company, no matter where you were in that process, to step up to the plate and make it easier for our advisors to sell insurance to our customers. Whether it's life insurance, health insurance, disability insurance, it's all very similar. So I'll give you some examples of what we did. We, pre-pandemic, would not accept a signature unless it was original, scanned, and sent to us. Almost immediately, we made the decision to accept DocuSign. There's a whole list that I even have to read here. OneSpan, EasySign, AuthentiCign, Next One Signature, your Apple Pen, all these things we accepted immediately. We had to make decisions. Okay, witnesses. What do we do about witnesses? You wouldn't think about that, but we have temporarily suspended the need for witnesses. So all these steps we are taking are making it easier for advisors to distribute our products in this current situation. From the advisor perspective, what I see, and we have quite a number of advisors that work with us. We have some of what we call preferred advisors, of which Kaven is one. But we have a large number of advisors, and at the first 2-3 weeks, I was talking to advisors, and they were saying, geez, I'm not sure how to navigate this. And every insurance company was throwing information at them, and here's the new way to send in application forms. So it took a few weeks to get everything sorted out. But once it was sorted out, advisors started to adapt to dealing with customers through Zoom. I actually had a Zoom meeting last night at 6 o'clock with an advisor in Ottawa and a dental hygienist. And so it's evolved to, we're at the point now where people are, I think, quite honestly, sick of COVID-19 and want to get back. I can't wait to go and have a coffee with an insurance advisor at a Tim Hortons. But everybody's at least got to the point where we're making progress and we can sell insurance without having to be sitting at the kitchen table. And there's other things that came up too, like if you purchased life insurance in the past or disability insurance, once you buy over a certain level, then the requirement is that a nurse has to come in and take a urine sample or a blood sample treatment. They can't do that anymore in the situation. That was all stopped. So insurance companies had to go back to the reinsurance companies. Those are the companies that share in the liability in case there's a claim. And say, okay, we need to increase the amount of coverage that we can provide our clients without having a nurse go to their home and take blood samples. So that started to happen. And for example, in a typical case, we would allow a disability to be issued up to $4,000 a month without blood or urine. We recently, 2 weeks ago, increased that to $6,000. So no nurse has to visit. Whether that's going to change when this is all over, I don't know. But my point is, there's a lot of changes that have been made, and there's. I'll end on this segment by just saying, you know what? Not every company works exactly the same way, but that process that I just described, people going to their homes, emergency teams being set up to come up with solutions for advisors and customers, that went on with every company over the first few weeks, and everybody sorted it out in their own way. But there's virtually no insurance product that I'm aware of that you cannot buy without somebody coming to your house right now. Between electronic application forms and Teams and Zoom and everything else, I won't say it's normal, but we have found a way to allow customers to still purchase the insurance they need.
So, and Bill, I have a question. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
People are always talking about life insurance because at OHIP as mediators, we have to talk to our families about securing child support and spousal support with a certain amount of life insurance. So there's always that worry. And during COVID, it's really hard for us when we're talking to clients, they don't have insurance. How do they get it? And can you give us an idea of sort of what the upper limit would be without any biological sample at the moment?
Yeah, you know what? On life insurance, I'm not certain, to be honest with you.
Maybe I can jump in. So life insurance, depending on the carrier, because there are many different insurance companies.
Yeah.
Bill at Blue Cross, their huge specialty is health and dental, disability, lots of health and living like related products. Mm-hmm. Life insurance you can get from some companies up to $1 million without needing to visit with a nurse.
Wow.
A lot of companies have been increasing their coverage, increasing their requirements, increasing the amount that people can purchase and do it electronically from the comfort of their home. So a lot of my meetings with my clients are through a Zoom call now rather than over the dinner table. And it's one where I can share my screen. And the website that I built for your association allows people to go online and create quotes as well through the site without needing to meet with an advisor. So there's a lot that you can do online nowadays.
Now, did they come back to you after post-COVID? Are they going to say you have to provide a biological sample of some liquid?
No, absolutely not. So when the underwriting is done, it's done at the time that you apply. So there's no more underwriting after you apply. Your health could change completely, and that's okay, right? Because that's what happens to us anyway over time. Is our health does eventually get.
I would sort of put that point A to point B that it's a little easier to get life insurance now. Is that?
It's a little bit easier now. It's not even more difficult because the insurance companies, they're making it a little bit easier so people can apply from home. They're not requesting a nurse, and it does depend on your age. And I just got a comment that it does absolutely depend on your age. So younger people can apply for more without visiting a nurse, and there are still solutions for all ages.
Wow.
Right.
Why is 50 the magic number? I know that's maybe a little off topic, but it seems like at 50, like, your insurance premiums go up and you start needing glasses. And,
You know,
things happen.
I,
The neck looks terrible on Zoom.
I think the insurance companies have a lot of rate bands. Rate bands like what are the statistics between 45 and 50? What are the statistics between 50 and 55? So it's possible that it has to do with rate bands.
Okay.
But there are so many different factors that can affect.
Yeah.
And the actuary, the actuaries always look at too. If you buy it at 50, you're expected to live till whatever 76. So that's the shorter that span is, the more expensive it becomes.
I see.
So I think Bill has a presentation to share.
Yes.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. We'll.
Okay. So folks, everybody cross your fingers. I'm going to share my screen, and with any luck, you'll see a Blue Cross presentation that I hope you will find interesting.
He's leaving space. I'm coming into it.
There. Can everybody see that?
Yep, we can.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. So welcome, folks. I'm going to give you right now a bit of an overview. I'll just make sure this goes back and forth. I'll just be with you in 1 second. There.
It can be harder to work your mouse on Zoom.
There we go. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about how insurance companies are adapting. I'll deal a little bit more with that again near the end. But I'd like to give you, I've gotten a lot of questions about OHIP, so I'm going to talk a little bit about OHIP. I think you'll find this interesting, and applying for insurance in a pandemic. We touched on that a bit, but I'll use health and disability as an example because that is included in your membership program. So to start with, let's have a look at OHIP. Or the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, as it's now called. I know everybody's had their own experiences with OHIP. Mostly, I would say good, but some not so good. You hear comments about waiting times and so forth. But overall, I believe, and I think most people believe, we are privileged to have one of the best healthcare systems in the world. Is it perfect? No, but it's a good system. It works, and if you get sick in Canada, you are going to get coverage, period. Hospital, doctors, it's covered. What the insurance world does is provide coverage for what's not covered around that, and we'll touch on that later. But generally speaking, we have a good, solid program with a worldwide reputation. Is it number one in the world like we are in hockey? Depends. In certain aspects of it, I'm sure we're number one, but not overall number one. I have been very interested in this myself, and I've looked at all kinds of surveys and studies where they've looked at different healthcare systems around the world, and I've tried to come up with a position. Where do we fit in globally in terms of the quality and care of our OHIP, our Ontario Health Insurance Plan? And I can't say that you can do that. I can tell you for sure that when I look, we're consistently rated in the top 10 to 15. Some of them were in the top 5, but consistently we're in the top 10 to 15 countries. So I took one of these surveys because I thought it was interesting, just to show you. This is called Ledigum Prosperity Index. And basically it's a private survey, and they look at things like life expectancy, infant mortality, and other various mortalities with regard to illnesses, what percentage of a person's income goes towards healthcare services. And I've really simplified it there, but I thought this one gives a good snapshot. And they rated, based on these factors, healthcare systems from 1 to 30. Now, I didn't put all 30 on here, but I put the top 10, and then I added in a number 24 and a 28, just to give you an idea in terms of where this particular index placed Canada. And as you can see, we're number 10. We're up there with some good companies, Japan and Luxembourg and Ireland. Like all those companies have good healthcare programs. Italy's rated number 24. China's rated number 28. Interestingly, and this is a US survey, the United States wasn't listed in the top 30, which I found very interesting. So I put this in here just to give you an idea. I think we have reason to be proud. We live in I think, one of the best countries in the world, if not the best country, and we have a good healthcare system that we can be proud of. And I think not many countries are envious of us. So thought you might be interested in that, but let's just sort of look at it in a more general sense. Like, what does the government cover? I get that question all the time because we take it for granted. We can go years and decades without having to pay a penny because we go to the doctor, we have a checkup, you don't get a bill afterwards. But it's not until I think we get to age 50, as Marianne was saying, and we get older, then we start to see the value not only of OHIP, but of supplemental coverage. But generally speaking, if you need to go into a hospital, it's covered. You don't have to take anything out of your pocket unless you want a private hospital room. Generally speaking, physician services are covered. You go to your doctor, he checks you out, he gives you a physical, you don't get a bill, it's covered 100% by OHIP. If something's a must and you need to go for tests, generally speaking, most of those tests are covered. If you need treatment as a result of those tests and you need to go to a specialist, the specialist is covered. So generally, physician services are covered. Dental, some dental surgeries covered, in hospital dental surgery. Some low-income dental programs are available. I'm going to mention one later. But generally speaking, dental is not covered under OHIP for the wide majority of us. Eye exam. So we go for an eye exam. If you're between 20 and 64, that's not covered. But if you're under 20 and over 64, that eye exam is covered. If they do some extra examination procedures like I did, because I avoided going for about 3 years, so she wanted to do some extra tests, that was not covered. I had to pay myself, but eye exams are covered if you're between 20 and 64. Drugs. If you're under 25 in Ontario and if you're over 65 in Ontario, drugs are covered under the Ontario Drug Benefit Plan. Are they all covered? No. Are the vast majority of them covered? Yes. They have a list of about 3,500 medications that are covered. Certainly most, if not all, life-sustaining medications are covered, and a broad range of other prescription drugs that are used in the treatment of chronic and non-chronic illnesses. So when people say, in Blue Cross, for example, at this point, we don't cover drugs over age 65 because the vast majority we feel are covered. And I'm going to shut that off. My apologies. But recently, under 25, you have now, children are now covered. That's happened in the last couple of years. It's the same drug list if you're over 65. There's no difference. And again, are they all covered? No, they're not all covered, but certain, I think, medications for some diabetic prescriptions are not covered. Some other prescriptions that cover diseases that are more prevalent in childhood, some of them are not covered, but generally speaking, the majority, again, are covered. When you're over age 65, you don't have to do anything. Shortly before you turn age 65, you get a letter from the government. Congratulations for surviving to 65. In 3 months, you're going to get a card and you will now be able to go into your pharmacist and with a small deductible, have most of your prescription drug coverage paid for.
Bill, can I ask a question about
yes,
the
yes.
So I remember this coming out, and my kids, one of them just graduated university and is no longer covered on my plan. And then this came out, so I was like, oh, that's great. But when she goes to the pharmacist to get a medication, they still charge her for the medication. And I wondered why they do that, or if you know about that answer.
How old is she?
23. She's
23. The only, and I could look into it, but the possible suggestion is, do you have under your, if she is still considered a dependent under your coverage, what the government basically says is if the parents are covered, then for prescription drugs, then the children need to be covered as well. That was a change on the Ford government part about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Prior to that.
How do you prove that? I mean, because she's not eligible because she's now, she graduated, so she was no longer a dependent. She was covered till the August after her graduation.
So if she's no longer a dependent, then she should be covered for drugs until age 25.
That's right. They say they do talk about our plan and say that, yeah. I guess because she's maybe associated with us at the pharmacy, but if others have had this experience, how do you talk to your pharmacy to say she's really not even eligible under my Blue Cross
Yeah,
plan?
because most health plans, and the same way that Blue Cross works, if you're 21 and under, you're covered. You're a dependent. After
Yeah,
21, if you're under 20, if you're 25 and under, as long as you're still in school, you're considered a dependent. But by contract,
yeah,
your child is no longer a dependent under your health plan because she's no longer in school.
yeah.
So I would honestly, I would revisit that with your pharmacist and just
Okay.
say, by contract, my daughter is no longer under my plan.
So, yeah, so maybe they're just associating it with
Yes, and
okay.
there is also, if they want to verify, we have a provider number that the pharmacist can call, and we can probably verify that your daughter is no longer a dependent under your plan.
Okay. All right. It's
And I
kind
would,
of a struggle. It's
yeah,
harder to get than, I mean, it sounds like at 65 you get a nice letter and no one
yeah.
questions, but
Oh,
under 65 they seem to question.
and there's still some little funny areas there too that have to be
Are there?
ironed. I think the other thing is, I would call Blue Cross customer service and make
Mhm.
sure that we do not have her listed as a dependent.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. First, that's the other thing to do, because they may be looking on the system and seeing that she's a dependent.
She's there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks,
Mhm.
Bill.
You're welcome. Out of province coverage. Recently, you may have heard in the news, the government removed what little coverage was available if you were traveling outside of the province and had a medical emergency in another country. There was some coverage up there. It was minimal. I'm glad they removed it, to be honest with you, because it gave people the false impression that they were covered. In many cases, people were thinking they were covered because we covered a little bit of hospital and a little bit of physician fees. Basically, what we would do is we would cover what we would normally cover here in Ontario, which, if you have a heart attack in Florida, doesn't even cover a thimbleful of what the medications and costs are in that situation. So basically, if you're traveling out of the country, for sure you need travel insurance. If you're traveling even into another province, we recommend travel insurance in going to another province, because you might need repatriation, you might need return of automobile, you might need coverage to have somebody come and visit you in the hospital. None of that is covered under the Ontario Drug Benefit Plans if you're traveling outside of the province. So if you're traveling outside the province twice a year, I would look into getting an annual travel plan of some type. Nursing and home care, yes, there's some limited coverage, but it's not what many people need. I know I had it myself. I had an operation there about 10 years ago. I had a nurse come and change a bandage once a day, and that was great. It didn't cost me anything. But with those, you can't really say when to come. You can't tell them who's going to come. So that's why every extended health package you see will include nursing to supplement that. And medical equipment. We will cover 75% of a lot of medical equipment under your OHIP plan. So that just gives you sort of a broad swipe of what OHIP covers and what it doesn't. There's a couple of other programs I'm going to bring to your attention. One of them is the Trillium Drug Program. A lot of people are not aware of this program, I find. And basically, everybody in Ontario who has an OHIP card is eligible for it if they need it. And basically, it's designed to provide residents of Ontario coverage in the event of catastrophic drug costs, and they don't have a drug plan to rely on. So generally, it's income-based. So if a drug cost exceeds 4% of their household income, they can qualify for coverage through Trillium. So put that one in the back of your mind. Hope you never need it, but it's there, and it's a program that every resident of Ontario has access to.
So that's actually super interesting. Like,
Yeah.
because I think, so I'm trying to figure out that my math skills are not good on the fly here, but
Yep.
for our clients, sometimes the discussion about extended health benefits, really hinges on, like, say there's I know there's really expensive medications for arthritis, for example,
Yeah.
that are very expensive. So what would someone do the math for me? What would 4% of the, like, an average income?
Yeah, let's say their household income is $100,000.
Okay.
Once their medication costs exceed $4,000,
Yeah.
they should have access to apply for Trillium.
So that's amazing. Okay. And do you know, is it ontario.ca, the Trillium Drug?
If you look on, I was going to tell everybody at the end, and I think I have the website on it here, and if I don't,
Oh,
I'll
okay.
email it. But basically, if you Google Trillium Drug Program, it'll come up. Or if you go to the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, you'll find a section in there. And so anybody can apply. And generally speaking, it's a 4% of their net family income.
That's the net, so not even
their whole family income. So if their salary is $100,000,
their net is 4. Okay.
Yeah, their net.
Okay, that's. I'm going to store that away in my mind.
Zoom picture is covering part of the slide. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I know it's hard when you do that.
Can you see the whole slide, by the way?
Yeah, I can see the whole slide. Yeah, yeah. Okay. We can move where you are. I think that's we can push you even further out into space. There,
okay.
Yeah.
My boss probably thinks I'm far enough out into space as it is.
Just avoiding Corona.
Yeah.
Space distancing.
Yeah.
Another one is assistant devices. And until you need it, a lot of people aren't aware of this one, but basically it covers things like hospital beds, wheelchairs, other mobility aids, ostomy supplies, prosthetics. OHIP will cover up to 75% of the standard cost of a lot of medical equipment. And again, that's why you'll see medical equipment always part of a health plan, is because we will pay for what's not covered under the assistant devices program. And often things like they may only cover wheelchair once every 4 years, where with an insurance plan, you can get a wheelchair as much as your coverage will allow you to purchase. So, but it's a good program and it's there and everybody has access to it. I talked a little bit about the Ontario Drug Benefit Plan, so I won't go bore you again with that one. A couple of other programs. There's more. If you're interested, and go to the Ministry of Long-Term Care, Health and Long-Term Care website, you'll see a whole bunch of programs, but I put some in here just to show you, here's some things that a lot of people don't know they're in there, but they're in there and they're covered by your tax dollars and you have access to them. One of them is called Healthy Smiles. I mentioned earlier that generally basic dental services are not covered by OHIP. However, if it's a low-income family situation, there's a program that will cover checkups for children under 17. So that's good to know. There's an Ontario fertility program. I get calls all the time from clients asking if we cover fertility drugs under our health plans, and we don't, and most other insurance companies don't. But there is an Ontario fertility program provided through the OHIP and the government. It's government funded. This one is, and I just used it myself the other day for a friend actually. Telehealth Ontario. I'm not sure if anybody out there's used it. I can't ask for a show of hands, but
well, you can ask for a thumbs up if you want.
Yeah, thumbs up. For those of you who have not used it, actually, it's pretty good. There's a little bit of weight now that COVID has entered into this plan, into the situation, but you can get a lot of information from a registered nurse. I phoned there the other day to get information on an elderly friend of mine, and I was because I had some concerns about people accessing him with COVID, and I was put in touch with a nurse who was a community nurse specializing in the COVID. She gave me some really good advice, and this is just at the tip of your telephone. So if you haven't tried it, again, the best, some of these things are the best things that you should never have to use, but if you do have to use it, you might want to write that one down, because it's, if your son has a fever and it's 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, where do you go? You can phone them and they will give you guidance. So it's good to keep aware, keep that number somewhere. I don't have the number on this presentation, but it's on their website. Another one that I didn't know was available, the person I mentioned earlier, I had this person go through this. It's a med check. It was a discussion with a pharmacist to look at their medications. And this gentleman, he was elderly. His wife had passed away a number of years ago. He was living on his own. He was taking supplements and he was taking prescriptions that this doctor had given him, and he's taking some other prescriptions that another doctor had given him, and vitamins. And so a pharmacist sat down with him with every single bottle and tube of stuff that he was taking and went through it. And they organized it. And where they didn't quite agree with what was happening, they went back to the doctor and had a discussion with the doctor. And at the end of the day, this guy was given a organized, it was almost like a checkerboard with pills and his entire medication. Some of them were removed. Some of the supplements he was told to stop taking, and he had a couple of other new ones that were added. It was an awesome program. And this guy who was, they were all over his kitchen counter before. Now that it's all organized, he goes into Shoppers Drug Mart at the end of every month. They give him his 30 days of pills and supplements to take. It's an excellent program. So it's in there. It's on the OHIP website as well. If you have an elderly parent that maybe is in a similar situation, I found that excellent. The last one I'm going to mention to you is, again, it's something that I've dealt with, community care access centers, seniors. So this provides a number of benefits covered under OHIP. Not everybody qualifies. They look, at their income and their overall situation. But if they qualify, for example, you've got a 70-year-old who's widowed, living on their own, doesn't want to move out of their home that they've been in for 20 years or 30 years. So they will come in and assess the person. And if they qualify, the person can qualify for somebody to come in and do light housekeeping, laundry, meal planning, shopping, errands, snow shoveling, landscape work. And depending on their situation, it could be 100% covered by OHIP. The ones that aren't covered or that can't be approved for it because maybe their income's a little higher or whatever, they can still access similar services from companies that have been supplemented by the government. So they're at a much lower cost than if the person was to go directly to an agency and try and have somebody come in and do it. So it's a very interesting program designed for elderly people who don't want to leave their homes and are, for the most part, able to stay in them, but they just need a little help. It's there. It's a good program. So there's a lot of things buried in our OHIP coverage that a lot of people aren't aware of, and I hope I have opened your mind a little bit to what's in there, and they are your tax dollars that are paying for all this, so it's good to be aware of it.
That's really helpful, Bill. The community care access centers for seniors, we do a little bit of work with the local health integrated network. So CCAC turned into the LIN. Is this a different branch then of the LIN, or is this now morphed into the LIN?
I'm not 100% certain. It seemed to me they were almost like it was part of it, but they were a separate entity.
Oh, okay.
They're broken down. I know when I looked at it, and they're broken down by sort of regions. Like
Okay.
South Scarborough, Northeast Scarborough. And each one seems to have a care manager,
right?
Or case manager.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you.
Okay, it might be useful to look up local health integrated networks too for those sorts of things. And one of them outside of Ottawa actually uses dollars to fund elder mediation, which is pretty cool. That's
oh, really?
Yeah, very neat. And it's the only one of its kind, but kind of like, mediation as a community response to strengthening families and helping people to live a more harmonious life, and really sort of get the family in a healthier spot so they can do the snow shoveling and the, all those other pieces. Yeah.
Oh, well,
it's a nice cost saver.
That's awesome. And the more, the more people are aware of those kind of programs, because a lot of people aren't.
Yeah. I wish that was more universal, but we're doing a lot to try to promote our connections with the government. And
are you? Good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so I thought I'd just give you some typical costs, and I've got 3 slides here. One of them is going to be just a little tool for you to get you thinking a little bit. But just typically, here's some things that are not covered by OHIP. Obviously, if you're between 25 and 65, drugs are not. So this is just a little chart, gives you some ideas of some relatively common chronic conditions and what their monthly 1-year and 10-year costs are. So you can see some are much more expensive than others. Some are a lot more common than others, but it just gives you a snapshot of what typical prescription drug costs are for some more common ailments. Typical family of 4, because a lot of people ask me, they say, okay, you know what, and if you've ever looked into a health and dental plan, it's not inexpensive. It's up there with your car insurance. And a lot of people, they look at it and they think, okay, well, I'm not sure if that, is it worthwhile for me to get a health plan? But a lot of people, what I find is have not actually looked through and seen the costs that they're spending out of pocket over the course of a year. So if you look on this chart, this just gives you, without anything out of the ordinary, a snapshot of what a typical family of four might spend on non-OHIP covered items. And even going to the dentist just once a year. Dad ended up in the hospital with appendicitis for 2 days. Somebody needed a root canal. So you can see there, none of them are over the top or not necessary, if you will. Mom decides 2 kids are enough and she wants birth control. So you can see the cost of what that costs. So for people that are thinking about it, I say, you know what, sit down and take a piece of pad and paper and write down what you spent in January, what you spent in February, what you spent in March, because it all adds up. The antibiotic that you got for the spider bite and the $70 extra on the eye exam, that kind of stuff. You add it all up, it's usually more than you think it is. For health and dental plans, also there is a tax benefit. So if you're an individual, you can claim under your 3% medical income deduction. If you're self-employed, it's an eligible expense under your annual income as a small business owner. So just a few thoughts on supplementary coverage, and I'm going to talk about health and dental plans. Out there, you have basically 3 types. There's a number of companies, a number of good quality companies out there that provide them, but there's basically 3 types of plans. There's medically underwritten plans. So I'm talking health, drugs, and dental here now. Dental is not underwritten, but the health and extended health portions are. So you have your medically underwritten plans. So you have to give the insurance company your health information. They will look at it, and based on that health information, they will accept you onto the plan, or they might accept you onto the plan with an exclusion for a pre-existing condition. Some pre-existing conditions they won't worry about, but most they will. If you've got high cholesterol, for example, and you apply for a health and dental plan or a health and drug plan that requires medical underwriting, you're probably going to get an exclusion for that high cholesterol medication you're on. Once you're on the plan, that's okay. Anything that happens to you going forward, you're covered. Doesn't matter. But it's if they base your acceptance on the plan on your health at time of application. Those plans tend to be a little bit less expensive and provide the highest level of coverage because they're medically underwritten. The other ones are simplified issue plans. Simplified issue plans are plans that are either guaranteed issue or pretty well close to it. A lot of companies refer to them as conversion plans. So if you're coming off a group plan, you can get a simplified issue or conversion plan as long as you apply within 60 or 90 days coming off. There's no medical underwriting, but the limits for, in particular, prescription drugs aren't nearly as high as the medically underwritten plans, and they tend to be more expensive because they're not medically underwritten. Third type of plan, which you have access to, is an association plan. So it tends to have a better level of coverage than the simplified issue plans. It's not medically underwritten. However, you need to sign a declaration of health to access it. So it's sort of, I would say, it's you don't have to go through that strenuous medical underwriting process, but you still have to pass a declaration, and the coverage you will end up with is much better than the coverage generally that you would get on a simplified issue plan.
Yeah, can I just point out on that? So we've had some, when this first happened, Kaven, maybe you can speak to it a little bit. So sometimes people couldn't meet that declaration, right? And then what happened to those people in our association?
Right. So I wanted to first share a story, and then if it's okay, I'll answer that quick question.
Sure.
So somebody like myself, I consider myself to be in good health. And it did happen many, many years ago where I dislocated my clavicle. And I did it because I was just playing games with my cousins. Like I was playing football with my cousins and I fell the wrong way and I dislocated my clavicle. And at that time I was in a lot of pain. When that had happened, because I was in a lot of pain. That's often when we think about insurance, when we need it the most, right? Not before the accident occurs, but usually after the accident, post-accident. So I had applied to Blue Cross through the medically underwritten plan because I was not part of an association. And because of that now pre-existing condition, because of the dislocated clavicle, I was able to qualify for the insurance, but with an exclusion. The exclusion because, Kevin, you're in great health, we'll approve you, but you've dislocated your clavicle and you need, a physiotherapist. So we'll give you the coverage except for anything related to your clavicle. And if the clavicle gets worse, then anything related to that, because it's now considered a pre-existing condition. It's a little bit like buying car insurance. I mean, if you have a scratch on your car and then you buy insurance, they won't cover the scratch that happened before you had the insurance. Right. So it works in a similar way, those medically underwritten plans. They don't cover the pre-existing conditions the same way the car insurance company doesn't cover that pre-existing scratch, but anything that happens after would be covered. The reason why this association plan is great is because they get rid of that underwriting. They get rid of that comprehensive check where all they do is have a couple of knockout questions where if you have these types of illnesses, then you won't qualify through the association plan, but without these types of illnesses, you can qualify and your pre-existing conditions are covered. So had I been a part of your association and been a member of your association at the time that I dislocated my clavicle and applied for insurance, then I would have qualified and my pre-existing conditions would have been covered. And that's something great that your association plan has to offer. It's the simple way of getting approved, right? Which isn't available to anybody except for the members of the OHIP. Now, I guess to answer your question, I mean, if somebody does take a look at that association plan, if they do want some coverage and it turns out they can't qualify because of that health declaration, because they have a chronic condition that knocks them out from the qualification, then there are two solutions available. One, I'm an insurance broker and I can work with almost every insurance company across Canada, which means if the solution is not Blue Cross, then I can find a solution from another insurer. But depending on the situation, maybe we can find a solution. Like Blue Cross has, just on the second point, they're a simplified issue plan. So a simplified issue plan can mean a little bit more basic coverage, but you can still qualify. So there are different ways that we can apply. Having a conversation with a member allows me to make a recommendation, allows me to say, okay, you will qualify or won't qualify for the association plan. And if you don't, then here's another solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I thought it's good to point that out. That's a funny story. I would never imagine a clavicle would be a pre-existing condition, but I guess it is.
Under a medically underwritten plan, I mean, I broke my shoulder, so yeah, I dislocated my shoulder. So, but through the association plan, there's nothing on the declaration that says.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a very, very comprehensive declaration that says, do you need a physiotherapist? But there is some more serious knockout questions, right? Mm-hmm.
And also for the members, because we have like over 800 members, and I think it's good for you to know as members who are listening that Kaven and I have a good working relationship, and he's so respectful of confidentiality, and I've never heard anything about anyone's application or anything. So you do a really nice job of keeping that very discreet, and I've got feedback from members to say, because it's a sensitive job, I think, to talk to someone about their, in mediation, we look at your finances and call that, taking down your trousers sometimes. And in life insurance, it feels like that's, a big exposure too. And there's some fragility sometimes of members when they're talking about their health, and you've been really good to people. So I just wanted to know that this is a safe space.
Thank you very much. What's great about this association plan and the membership of the and having this membership benefit available through the OHIP is that Blue Cross has not only made this available to the OHIP members, but it's also available to the family members of each one of your members, and it's available to the employees as well. So if somebody is a member of the OHIP and they want to provide this to their staff, they can.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thanks,
Bill.
Kevin.
I'll let you jump back in.
Okay. Yeah. And you know what? And just a point, and honestly, folks, I can tell you, Kevin did not give me money to say this, but my job at Blue Cross is now and has been over a couple of decades to work with insurance advisors that sell our programs. And honestly, there are lots of alternatives and options out there for you. The best way to access them is through an insurance advisor, because you won't pay more money. They are knowledgeable and know where to look for your particular situation and get you the best coverage. So it's great that we have access to the internet and the interwebs to compare and price out and whatever. But an insurance advisor really knows what products are out there and what differentiates those products. So I just thought I would point that out. So I talked a little bit about medically underwritten plans, best value for premium, simplified issue plans. So they're an alternative when there's health issues, and generally a higher premium for benefit and limited benefits. So everybody asked me, what does it cost? So I put some sample costs in there for you, just so you have an idea. If you're getting a typical extended health benefit plan that includes hospital, chiropractor, medical equipment, nursing, some travel insurance, some vision care, say $5,000 per person for drugs, and a decent dental plan. Single 30-year-old is going to be about $124 per month. Single parent, $172, and that can be $172 up to 4 children. I don't know, a lot of people have 4 children now, but our single parent rates actually are very good. These are Blue Cross rates. So gives you a flavor for what it costs for family, adults. If there's 2 adults age 50 with 2 children, a little over $300. So it just gives you a flavor for some costs.
If I can jump in for a second about those costs.
Yep.
I mean, the plans are totally flexible. You don't have to add drugs if you don't want drugs. You don't have to add dental if you don't want dental. There is also a component of EHC where you have vision, you have travel, you have parameds, you have orthopedic shoes, you have all kinds of services. So somebody under age 40 that's looking for a healthcare plan without the dental and drug component can get started for $14 a month.
Yeah.
Right? People can upgrade that plan and customize it in whichever way they want, and costs can increase with the plan that you create for yourself. But if like there are healthcare solutions available starting at $14 a month when you're under 40 years old, and even when you're over, it doesn't get much higher. Like between 55 and 64, the same healthcare plan is $29 a month. So there are many solutions available, many affordable options available where coverage can be less than $1 a day. It all depends on how you want to customize it, and if you want everything, then it becomes a little bit more expensive. But you can pick and choose what matters to you most.
Yeah, I tend to err on the side of everything. That's why it's always good to talk to your insurance advisor. But that gives you a good idea, and Kaven is 100% right. You know, these plans can be so flexible that you might not want certain coverages, which substantially reduces the premium.
And there is a website built specifically for the OHIP members who want to create a quote. I mean, you can contact me and I can direct you to it, or there is a link available where you can land on the page and you can generate your own quote. They're all available online. That declaration is available online. It's all available through the OHIP link. Sorry, Bill.
No, that's fine. The next product, and the last one I'm going to speak about is disability. I always like to point this one out because I think it's probably one of the least sold insurance products in the industry, but I do believe it's one of the most important and often misunderstood product. Basically, the whole concept of disability insurance is to, in the event that you have an accident or become sick and cannot earn an income, this product replaces your income. And there's a lot of people that don't purchase it for a lot of different reasons. And we got this out of a consumer disability awareness study, and it was done in 2014. A lot of people believe they can't afford it. A lot of them never heard about it. A lot don't know about it. It's not available at my work. That's okay. There's better products available outside of your work. I don't think I'll ever become disabled. That's the ones amongst us, and I can put myself in that category. You think you're never going to get sick until you do, and it's not good value. So there's all kinds of reasons why people don't purchase it, but it's something that everybody should consider because there's a lot of reasons. And here's 10 of the most common reasons why people have claimed on disability. Mental or emotional disabilities. And I'm very interested to see what happens with disability claims as a result of the COVID-19 we're currently going through, because from everything you read, we're not anywhere through it yet. Back or spine injuries, arthritis, heart trouble, So there's quite a number of reasons, but any condition that's generated by accident or illness that prevents you from earning your income is covered under disability. So if it's something that I think should be considered, we're forced to buy car insurance, or we can't get our license sticker, we're forced to buy home insurance because the bank won't give us a mortgage if the house isn't insured. But nobody's forcing us to insure our greatest asset outside of health, which is our ability to earn income. And that's contingent upon our health. So it's something that you should consider. And I put in one slide on this one because this is the number one reason, oh, geez, disability, I can't afford it. Well, look here's, I think, a very representative sample. In this example, I've used a male real estate broker, accident and illness, $3,000 monthly benefit with a 60-day waiting period. This will cover that person to age 65 if he has an accident. So it's a good quality coverage. A 30-year-old is $49. A 40-year-old is $90. A 50-year-old is $167. So it's not unaffordable. It's actually less expensive than health and dental insurance, and it's something that is definitely should be considered. And I put this in here also because, one, as a member of your association, we give access to up to $2,000 a month without underwriting for disability insurance. It's a good product. It's better product than you will find in a group plan because you can choose waiting periods. You can choose benefit period to age 65 for your own occupation that you're in now. There's a lot of features you wouldn't find in a group disability plan. So it's accessible through your association plan. And it's something that I have received since COVID. There's three things that I've received more calls on since COVID started. One of them is health and dental insurance. The second one is disability insurance. And after the last few weeks about long-term care insurance. Every day I'm getting a couple calls now on long-term care insurance. So, but disability is people have realized now that, you know what, now I've been off, maybe they've had access to that CERT program, but they're off, they haven't been able to earn an income for a month or two. Hopefully they can go back to work, but it's making people aware that, if the event that I can't earn an income for a few months, it's going to cause a problem for me. And one of the main reasons for foreclosure on a mortgage is the person's become disabled and is unable to meet their mortgage obligations. And unfortunately, as much as I love the banks, they don't care, and they will foreclose. So that's my little spiel on disability insurance. And I think I'm coming close to my hour.
Yeah.
I would leave it for questions if there are any.
I have one question about coverage for a senior.
Yes.
What the average rates are. We sort of stopped at 50 there. Do you have any data for, and like drugs are covered after 65, so I guess would coverage rates go down a little bit because they don't include drugs, or?
Yeah, I don't have anything in front of me that I can sort of whip up a quick quote, but basically our costs will go down. Generally what happens is they go down at age 60 because we take drugs off at age 60. So if you look at Blue Cross, a lot of companies will pay for or charge for drugs over age 60. But if there's a drug that's not covered, then they'll cover it. Where we don't, we just say no drugs, but our prices are quite affordable for seniors, I would say, people over 65. I just off the top of my head, without going onto my quoting software, I can't give you an example. But
right, it's hard to tell.
Among the more affordable in the industry, I would think.
That's good. Okay. And they could go through Kaven too to figure that out. For disability benefits, I know that there's some plans that have, you don't have to pay income tax on them, and some that you pay income tax on. Is that something that people should be very aware of buying disability insurance?
Yeah, generally, if you're purchasing it for yourself, you don't have to worry about that. You're not paying income tax on it as an individual. If you're getting it through your employer, and the employer is paying any part of the premium, then you're going to be taxed on that benefit.
Okay.
So,
that's good to know.
Yeah. For example, I have disability through Blue Cross, but Blue Cross doesn't pay any of it. So if I'm disabled, it's not a taxable benefit for me.
Not taxable benefit. Okay, that's good. And then I had a question from very early on. I managed to hold on to it, so I'm proud of myself. But why is dental coverage not covered, even part of it by OHIP. I always thought that was do you have any insight there?
You know what? I don't, other than I can say, you know, the program that I mentioned, there's a little bit of coverage there. And if you have a car accident and end up in the hospital, you're going to get some coverage. But I guess they just haven't deemed it a priority. Maybe maybe there's probably a cost factor, because if you look at even the individual plans that are available, or group plans for that matter, that are available in the market, dental is quite a big chunk of the premium.
Yeah.
So it's probably a combination of cost and priority, I would think.
Okay. And I guess is like essential healthcare, I guess. It feels pretty essential when you have a toothache, but
I think that's why they did recognize a number of years ago, and they came up with that SMILE program. They said, you know, we need to get these kids that don't have access to a dentist because they can't afford it into a dentist to at least you know, give them a checkup and fill a tooth that has a cavity in it, so that, you know, they don't end up.
There's another program for adults at any age really, but U of T's dental school needs participants. So you can go and pay a very low rate for you know, if you needed a root canal and there's a cash flow problem, if you don't mind being in and I've toured that facility, and it's really neat. It's like a huge gymnasium with, probably it's not happening now for COVID, but it was kind of cool. Everyone's learning, and, you know, the people were being supervised by loads of different people. But I used to work for social services, and we would refer people there because it was good cost.
The students would do the work.
Yeah, the students do the work. Yeah.
They did an excellent job.
Yeah, it was really, I think it's a neat program. I think it was pre-COVID in existence. But thank you so much for your time today, Bill and Kaven. It's always nice to meet you and speak with you. And the OHIP thing I think was really enlightening. And there's those programs, I'm going to look into them and see if I can share more information, because those look really, really good for our clients. I think there's a number of people who are struggling, especially now. And the more resources we have as mediators can really help us to serve our clients and help with community health, really. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure seeing you on the moon there, and love the backdrop. And my green screen is courtesy of Kaven, your friend with benefits. He solved my problem for me with my computer wasn't strong enough, so this is a green screen behind me. It's my real office is not quite as swishy as that looks, but
it's nice looking office.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I wouldn't mind that office, but yeah, we're a not-for-profit.
Yeah, so are we actually. Blue Cross is a not-for-profit too.
Are you?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. We're basically, we don't have shareholders. We don't pay dividends. We're basically owned by our customers.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay. Excellent. Well, on that fun note, I will say goodbye to all of you. Have a great afternoon. It's been great to see you, and thanks very much. We'll see you again.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.